Hello, welcome everyone. So real quick, before we go ahead and get started, I'm just gonna let you guys know that we're just gonna kind of let people kind of come in, trickle in before I will pass it over to Danny and she will introduce this.
All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speaker now. Before that, I just want to welcome everyone to our third and final keynote speaker of Kinematifest. Myself and all the other officers just want to thank everyone who's attended the panels and the different events so far. And of course, thanking all of the speakers who spoke on those panels and events. It's been a wonderful weekend full of so much information, and it's been a lot of fun to have everyone. I do want to announce that the winners will be announced at 5. Their films will stay up till 8 o'clock on the website, and all the other films will be up till 6 o'clock. So just a reminder to everyone, make sure you catch those films and watch everything before they're taken down. And so without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and introduce Leah Latham. So Leah is a Webster alumni who has worked on Frozen 2, Moana, Zootopia, and Raya and the Last Dragon. She's here to share her advice on transitioning from a college student to climbing the industry ladder. So without further ado, Leah, you can take it away.
Hi, everybody. It's a huge honor to be here. Thank you. Especially, I saw the last panel, and that was incredible. You guys all kicked major derriere, and shout out to Ashley, who is also my co-worker and fellow Webster Kinematifest officer too. So like, hey Ash. So it was awesome to see her on screen too. And so yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is a huge honor, and you guys have really put on an amazing weekend. So I'll get into it. So we'll start out, I suppose, with like all good stories, and you start at the beginning. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself and how we got to where we are today. So a little bit about me, and I'm from Illinois. I'm from a very super tiny small town, Illinois, called Pontiac. It's on Route 66. It's 11,500 people, including the prison and the landfill. It's a cute little nugget of town. And so but I grew up, you know, like many of us, watching Disney movies. And when I was 3, as soon as I realized that animation was actually drawings, I told my mom I wanted to draw for Mickey. And so ever since I was 3, I was like, this is what I'm doing with my life. I am going to be an artist professionally, and this is what I'm doing. I'm going to be an animator. So I obsessively studied art, and I obsessively studied drawing and animation and figure drawing. And that was my whole everything all through high school. And by the time I got to start looking for colleges, and I found Webster, and I'm so excited that it was with a reasonable distance of home base, and St. Louis is such a fantastic city, and Webster's just felt right. So stepping onto campus at Webster, it felt right. It felt like home. They had a swim team, they had animation, and I was like, this is it. This is gonna be great. So I applied and I got in, and it was awesome. And then I arrived at my first day, and I remember going to the school communications like orientation day. And I sat down, and I remember the dean going around and going like, raise your hand if you're a film student. And, they raise your hand. Welcome students, welcome students. Raise your hand if you're a marketing student. Raise your hand. Welcome. But they never said animation. And I was like, this feels weird. Like, I wonder, maybe I'm just in the wrong school. Maybe I was actually just given a bump steer and I was supposed to be in the school of art or something. And I went and talked to my program facilitator, and they're like, oh, no, you're an emphasis. It was an interactive digital media major with an emphasis in animation. And I was like, I'm sorry, that's not what I thought I was here for. I thought I was going to be a full animation major. And he's like, but we have a plan. We have a 5-year plan that we're going to make this a full animation major. And I was like, cool, cool, cool. I graduate in 4. So how can we expedite this plan? Because I really wanted to graduate as a full-fledged animation major. So I tell that because it was part of what got me. Oh, Laura, you're from Bloomington? What? Hey, hi, my mom was there. But that's what got me plugged into to what eventually focused my entire career around. So that freshman year, our program facilitator was like, well, I have a plan. There's this organization called SIGGRAPH. And I was like, cool, I don't know what that is, but I want it. And so we started the SIGGRAPH chapter at Webster, and we were like, we didn't really know what we were doing, but we did the research, and we developed a chapter, which I'm so proud and excited to know that some of you wonderful folks are part of SIGGRAPH now, so alive and healthy and well. We went at that point to the annual conference, which every year is a really big deal. If you haven't been, I highly, 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 highly recommend you go, especially if you can get to be a student volunteer. It's a fantastic way to just immerse yourself in job fairs and see what other people in the industry are doing, see what other schools are doing. And for me and my other college mates that were there, that was very eye-opening for us, because all of a sudden we went out and we saw what other students were doing at other schools, and we went, oh, we got to up our game. Like, we are not ready to get jobs next to these folks. And our program was fledgling. It was a really brand new baby major, and so the really cool thing is that we had an opportunity to kind of create your own adventure. So we came back on fire, and we're like, cool, we have the SIGGRAPH platform, we need more. And we are, there's that term flyover state, being in Missouri, and how do we get the people who are actually doing the jobs that we want here talking to us and reviewing our work, and that we can get real advice from people who are plugged in and doing what we want to be doing every day. So that's where Kinematifest was born in 2007. I was one of the founders along with Carol Mertz, and the two of us were like, all right, we're going to make an animation festival. How do you do that? I have no idea, but let's do it. Let's say manifest it. So we did our research, and we learned how to make budgets, and we learned how to stand in front of SGA and ask for money, and to be passionate, and to recruit. And all of a sudden, that's what I found myself really getting passionate for, is through SIGGRAPH was a huge platform for that, but going out and meeting people and getting connected and selling our program and the passion that we have to industry professionals, and saying, don't you want to come to St. Louis? We have the best barbecue. We have the City Museum. We have Crown King's Candy Store. We have some amazing things, and I want to show you how amazing our city is. And can you talk to our students as well and teach us something along the way? So that's where we started. With that, I think our first Kinematifest, we just threw out the invitation to as many schools as we could possibly find. I think we threw it out to like 300 schools to see who would come in, and organized, speakers and judges. And I learned so much through that experience. It was one of the most difficult things I think I've ever done. So respect. I know how it feels. It is difficult, and it is, and you're doing it on top of a full course load, and you're doing it on top of finals and everything. So it's a lot. But that taught my experience has paid off in dividends for me, like as far as seeds to grow into saplings throughout my career. So through Kinematifest, I'm an animation major. I'm whole hog into being really passionate about it. I'm taking all the animation classes I possibly can. And then I have a moment where I realize I don't like animating. And that was terrifying to me. I had a full-blown proper quarter-life crisis, complete with panic attacks and breakdowns, because my whole life I was like, this is what I'm doing. I'm gonna be an animator, And it come to find out that didn't provide me the joy that I knew I wanted to get out of it. And around the same time, we had coordinated a speaker from the 2D era of Disney, who was the father of one of my classmates. Shout out to Hannah Hadar and her father, Joe Hadar. Joe came out, he taught us all about his experience in the 2D era of Disney. And I actually I started talking with my friend stepmom, Sally, more than I did Joe. Because Sally pulled me aside and she's like, you sound more like a producer than you do an animator. I was like, no, producers are scary. Producers yell at people and they only live in Excel sheets and money. And she's like, no, girl, it's fine. Calm down. It's not as scary as it sounds. So I was like, okay, well, let's explore what this is. And having a really good heart-to-heart with her, she really did explain that, a producer is in charge of help facilitating the goals, bringing together this great lofty idea and bringing it to a finish line, articulating it, bring a team together, creative problem solving, getting people passionate about it. It's like, that is just what I just did with Kinematifest and SIGGRAPH. And it's, okay, well, maybe this is a fit. So I pivoted hard, and which was really, really scary, but I pivoted and all of a sudden started taking all of the producing type classes I could find. So I got jobs at Animagic down on the landing. I got as a like assistant production manager. I got jobs at Coolfire Media as a PA, and just anyone who would let me in their door, and so I could just learn, and something that said production in it, so that I could start to learn what that meant and if I liked it. Turns out that I loved it, thank goodness. And my great overarching statement, which I definitely heard from the panelists as well, is that your time at college is your time. You're paying for it. It is there to work for you. Use it for what you need to get out of it. I think even Ashley, I think I saw one of her chats was like, a degree doesn't guarantee you a job. It's so true, but it is a perfect breeding ground for finding out what you like, finding out what you don't like, failing, succeeding, making friends, and learning from them. So in that space, it's a beautiful space. And summer before graduating, I came out to Los Angeles because I wanted to know if I liked it or not. And I actually got an interview at Disney for one of their internship programs. And I got all the way into the door for an interview and I didn't get it. And I was devastated because obviously, right? I'm like, oh, I'm here, this is where I want to be. And I didn't get it. But what I did get, and this is definitely a theme I'm going to touch on again later, Sally Caddick, again, the woman who helped me make this career pivot, she let me sleep in their spare room for a whole summer because she was like, I believe in you. I want to help you. Come sleep in my spare room in Burbank, California. And when I didn't get that job, I was like, what am I going to do now? And she knew someone who knew someone who knew someone who needed an assistant. And I worked as a director's assistant in a teeny tiny animation studio in Burbank. And I got to do so many things. I got to storyboard, I got to work the set, I got to paint the green screen, I got to run the camera, I wrote some like basic signing contracts, which I definitely don't have the experience doing, but it did set me up for some future experience of recruitment. I got to recruit, I think I hired like 9 people. I did so many things, and it taught me a lot about what I don't want to do and definitely what I did want to do. So that was a fantastic experience that then came back to my senior year at Webster. And I feel all of you seniors right now. I think I handed off the reins of being president of SIGGRAPH. 2 weeks later, did Kinematifest. 2 weeks later, did finals. 2 weeks later, graduated. 2 weeks later, got married, honeymoon. 2 weeks later, moved to Los Angeles. And then a month and a half later, I was actually able to land the job at Disney. So it was a really tense year. But what that part looked like was, so I had invested all of this time and energy in trying to make connections over my 4 years. And I mean that, I don't mean that blithely, like a lot of intentional, a lot of work, a lot of keeping communication up, relationship up, staying in contact with those people that I've met and garnered those relationships over the past 4 years through SIGGRAPH and Kinematifest. And by the time I was able to graduate, okay, opened up that book and sat down and went like, who needs a PA? I can make a mean cup of Joe. I will go do whatever you need me to do. I am your woman. And I was really, really fortunate that one of the recruiters from Disney sat me down, and she has given me a lot of the real world advice that I hope, if nothing else, to keep passing on. But those, you have those beacons of light along the journey, and that are able to turn around and give you those seedlings, so that you're like, oh, thank God you told me this. But she gave me some guidance about like how even to approach recruiters, and how much interaction to be thrown at them. And when I sat down with her and I was like, okay, where do I start? She's like, well, we don't have any production jobs right now, but I do need a coordinator in recruiting. I was like, great, I'll do it. I hired 9 people at this teeny tiny studio. I didn't know what I was doing, but look at this relevance that I have now. So I started in recruiting at Disney, and that was huge. That was as you can imagine, it was dream come true. And I learned so much through recruiting, and I learned again what I did and didn't want to do. And for me, I really wanted to get back into actual working on the movies. When you're in recruiting, you're meeting these amazing artists, you're getting them all in, you're meeting them on like day one, and then they go off and make the amazing movies, and you don't get to quite play on the same team. So when we were ready to hire production assistants, again, I rose my hand, and I'm very lucky that my boss was supportive and helped me get an interview to go be a production assistant. And I landed in Prep and Landing 2, which is a really charming little Christmas short. If y'all don't know, I hope you get to see it, but both Prep and Landing 1 and 2 is adorable. But Prep and Landing 2 is my first PA gig, and I got to work in the back end department. So lighting, effects, stereo, and then some ancillary projects. We actually got to take some of those assets and put them in the parks. We got to do a world of color with our, that was super cool. So that was a fantastic place to start. And then from there, I got to go on to Frozen 1 as the editorial production assistant, and then was promoted to be the editorial coordinator. And in that space, I got to learn editorial is really the backbone to the entire movie, from birth to leaving into the theaters. It is the backbone, the through line. And so I got to run recording sessions with all of our actors and prep scripts and make sure that all the latest information and shot changes made it onto the floor, onto the rest of the show. Then I was promoted to be a production supervisor on the unnamed project that we pivoted away from. But at the time I got to be the story production supervisor, and I was so terrified in that role, because I made it. This is a really big role, because all of a sudden as a supervisor, you get to lead an entire department. This is like, oh, this is great. And you get up there, and it's just underscoring that this is part of it. Getting outside your comfort zone is such a blessing. And it's okay to be scared, because I continue to be scared when you're feeling it's good to be reaching outside of your comfort zone. So anyway, I tried and made mistakes along the way at that level for sure. And then I got an opportunity to jump onto Zootopia as the editorial production supervisor. And that movie was maybe, for me, again, for intents and purposes, was my first production supervisor job. And that was maybe the most challenging movie that I have ever gone through, because it was my first time leading a department, but also for all of the creative challenges that we went through. And it came out incredible. That we're so proud of that movie, but it was really difficult to make. And so that was a great moment too, to remind me that I was like, this is what I do love to do, because I put 112%, I think all of us do, put 112% of ourselves in. So that was affirming that it was what I was meant to do. Also along the way, I got to do some voice acting in that movie, which was a super cool, unexpected, wonderful thing, which I don't think I would have gotten that experience if I didn't just keep saying yes to whatever showed up. And I think that's a huge lesson that I learned, is just keep saying yes to the things that show up that maybe you're a little afraid of and you don't know that you are qualified to do, or if you can do. But if you just put yourself out there, some amazing things follow in its wake. After Zootopia, I went to Moana as the stereo and sweatbox PS. And sweatbox is one of those kind of Disney only-ish departments that it's like a center department that checks all of the animation and cinematography to be sure it looks good before it goes on to the other downstream departments. So you got a purview to the entire movie, which was a super fun department, as well as stereo, so making it 3D, which we have a mighty small, incredibly mighty stereo department at Disney. And so that was so much fun. And then Frozen 2, I got to be the story production supervisor, which I can't speak highly enough about. And then jumped to Raya and the Last Dragon. And at first I started in the marketing department, which was really cool because you got to work on everything that would be like from toys and clothes and stickers to the art of books and the publishing offshoots, to our teaser trailers and our posters. And it was kind of all these other things that we got to that are slightly outside of actually making the movie. So that was really, really neat. And then about halfway through that was asked to jump back into story and editorial, which has now kind of become my specialty, and become the senior production supervisor for screening strategy to help them get through a rejiggering of their schedule. And we made some really big changes about halfway through production. And so I just went in to help make that cross the finish line. And then I had just on Friday wrapped up working as the lighting production supervisor on Encanto, which is going to come out this year. It's gorgeous. Songs by Lin, I'm going to do a little plug, but it's because I'm so dang proud. So songs by Lin-Manuel Miranda. I know, everyone just take a moment, let that wash over you. It takes place in Colombia. It's absolutely gorgeous, and it's going to be an incredible movie. I cannot wait for it to be finished, but I'm leaving that movie because as of Monday, I'm going to be the production manager of development, which means that I get to manage all of the schedules for all the projects early in development, which is really exciting because we are, I think, in another moment of a renaissance or an explosion of content at our studio, which is really thrilling. Because with Disney Plus and all the other things that we've got going on, we've got a lot of things going on, as we say upstairs. So that's kind of where I've gotten now. I'm going to take a drink because I just did a lot of talking. I really appreciate all my friends on screen who are really highly emotive. I so appreciate you. I figure at this point, I'll just kind of pivot into maybe some lessons learned along the way and things that I wish I had been told and things that I have been learning. Okay, yes, okay, great. Thanks, guys. All right. So honestly, and again, listening to the whole panel, and I'm just going to be underscoring and reemphasizing a lot of what they said, because there's a lot of really wise folks on there, and any of them would make an amazing keynote too. So just to continue to reinforce and maybe expound upon, do things that scare you, do things that are outside your comfort zone. Look outside your immediate surroundings. Look outside, Webster, look outside Missouri. Travel if you have the luxury of doing so. And if you don't, then let the internet be your guide and get out there. See what people from different cultures, from different beliefs, from different walks of life think of what their day-to-day is. If you are any filmmaker at any level, whatever you are, for an animator, or if you're a writer or a director or a aspiring producer, or wherever you are, there's something to be learned from others. So keep reaching out and make connections and listen and study and go be that. I was definitely that person who would go to the mall and just watch people and draw people in the corner and learn about their body language and what kind of stories do you think that they have that they're taking home, and what kind of person are they presenting to the world, and maybe who are they truly on the inside. There's so many stories just in the people that you meet and that you don't meet. Another piece of advice is seek out the people that you really admire and keep working with the people that you really admire and that you want to learn from. That is something that I think that I've learned that's important to me when choosing projects to next work on. Searching out the people that I want to spend my whole days with, that feed my soul as well as my brain, and having those people, it's all, for me, it's all about the people that you're working with. You know, you could be, it takes so much work to make any piece of art, you know, commercial or otherwise. Make sure you're doing it with people who are worthwhile and on a project that you find worthwhile, because you are going to work just as hard on that thing that you don't really care about as you do as a passion project. So for me, I found that was a lesson that I learned on this journey. Be sure that you love it. Be sure that what you do, you love. Again, back to how I had that horrible quarter life crisis my sophomore year at Webster, where I was, oh God, I don't like animating. Be sure you love it, because you're gonna, you know, that was a piece of advice I got from a Disney animator that we got in to be for Kinematifest too. He's like, you're gonna be spending well over 40 hours, upwards of like 80 sometimes, you know, make sure that what you're doing you love. And also, it's okay if you think you love it today and then down the road you find out that you need to change your mind. That's fine. It's okay, because it's all lessons learned. It's all experience. It's all things that you can pivot and hopefully take with you into your next adventure. A reminder that for animation, there are so many different departments in animation, the great global animation. There's usually something for everyone, depending on what you're really interested in. If you really like, again, drawing, if you really like sculpting, if you really like, you know, interior design, we have a gentleman who is incredible at our interior design. That's the job. Marketing, finance, legal, like there's so much that is necessary to make any of these things work. So, you know, find what you're really passionate about. And if it's two-pronged and you're like me, like I really love leadership and I love problem solving and I love putting teams together, but I want to do it in the animation space, you know, there's so many more things other than just being an animator properly. So if that inspires anyone, I hope that is encouraging. And also, particularly when you're like at Webster, you get an amazing opportunity to work on a bunch of different disciplines because you're doing like your own thesis, right? You have to kind of like do it all. Going forward, take that information, find the pieces that you really, really like, because you don't have to be amazing at all of it. You can be amazing at a piece of it. And it definitely depends on the type of job you're seeking and at the type of place. It goes as big as, like, say, Disney. You can go to like a small studio, like I mentioned my first job, where I got to do a whole bunch of things. And you need to be really good at a whole bunch of things. But if you go to somewhere like a really big studio, such as I'm at, we have people who specialize in like a very specific thing, and they are amazing at coding. They are amazing at hair development. They are amazing at particle emitters. You know, that there are specialities along the way. So there's just a lot of latitude. Let's see. I think, again, Ashley, I see you. I'm pretty sure that I think that Ashley said this bit, which I totally agree, just to reaffirm what she said about look at the credits and find people that you that are doing what you want to be doing, and then go find them online. And so again, if you're watching a movie, exactly as I think Ashley said, you know, you watch Rye. I think she was mentioning Helen as the environments designer. You know, you watch that, and then you go find their artwork, and then you mimic them. You mimic them, and you figure out why. Okay, so Helen designed this design a particular way. Why? Let me draw over her things just so that I understand why she made the choices she did. And then you take that lesson that you learned by mimicking the legends, the people that you really want to emulate, and make your own thing. But then it's all education. It's all coming back to the basis of like where you are right now at Webster. It's all studying from the masters and then making your own from that. Figure out why Bill Schwab is an amazing character designer. What is it about his designs that translate well into making characters? Look at Chad Stubblefield and why his modeling is so clean, and why, you know, the choices that they're able to make. There's so many amazing professionals out there that you have a cheat sheet in the credits of your favorite movie. So definitely use that. Let's see what else we got here. You know, I would like to take a minute and just say that, you know, there are so many different paths for getting where you want to be. And along the way, so much of that can come with some self-doubt because there's so many options. It's like when you go to, like, I don't know, the Cheesecake Factory, and you're like, there's like 600 different options. I don't know what I want. Suddenly I'm not hungry at all. I'm terrified. I'm going to go have a panic attack in the bathroom. And just me, panic, you know, Cheesecake Factory panic attack.
The Cheesecake Factory has a whole level of stress to it,
right?
more than any
So,
other restaurant.
Mm-hmm. The whole thing. Finding your career can kind of be as overwhelming, right? As encouraging as it is to hear there's no right path, you can go anywhere, right? It's also terrifying, right? Because sometimes, I know I'm this way, you kind of want a checklist. You kind of want to know that if I do this, it's going to turn out okay. And I just want to give encouragement to not be trite in the there's no wrong path. As long as the next step that you're making is the step that you are active in and that you are passionate about, you will be on the right path. Another big thing, obviously, I'm coming at it from a female perspective, but I know part of that identity is some self-doubt that I had along the way. And, you know, some of that was external. I definitely had some folks tell me that my dreams were too big and California is too far away and Disney is too big and too aspirational. And then part of that was also inside of me going, what, am I good enough? Would I ever be good enough? And am I worthy of doing that? And I think many of us probably feel this way, but I know, speaking to many girlfriends, I know it's a kind of part and parcel with with some struggles that we naturally hold in ourselves and going like, but why me? Like, am I worthy? Am I good enough? Am I hitting 100% of the requirements to make this job, to make this leap? So I just want to say that, I want to be that person that I wish I had, and I did have, that said, you can do it. Actually, again, Sally Caddick, she was like, I think I said, like, there's so many people, I didn't even want to apply for that Disney internship that, again, I didn't get, but still I didn't want to apply because I was like, I'm going to fail. Like, I know that, like, why would they choose me from little St. Louis? Why would they choose me? And she's like, more people don't apply because they are afraid of applying. Just put your name out there, just get in there and just see what happens. But if you don't take that first step, you'll never make it. You just got to get out there and try. So, I hope I can be that person, just tell you to get out there and keep trying and apply for things that scare you and apply for things that you don't think that you are 100% qualified for, because you might not be today, but you will continue to be, and hopefully you'll get feedback along the way of like, okay, maybe I didn't make it today, but help me pivot, help me learn from how I can get there eventually. There's learning to be done along the way. And whatever your obstacles are, whether it's your race or your gender, your sexuality or your economic status or your education, is whatever that is, you can actually take that as a strength. I really want to encourage you all to internalize that story, that you come with your unique, special perspective that each of you have, and bring that as part of your identity and live out loud that uniqueness that is uniquely and innate to you, because we're all storytellers in our heart, right? So that whatever that is what we want. We want to see that. Don't hide that. Don't try to assimilate into any box that you think may or may not exist. Like, be your authentic self, because you'll be that much more vibrant of a creator. You will be that much more of an authentic person to show up and meet the people across the table from you when you are having that job interview, when you are having that portfolio interview. Your perspective will be able to really come out and shine. And the really wonderful thing of where we are, I think, particularly even in the last 10 years, is the industry as a whole has really tried to pivot and is trying to take a moment and listen and figure out what those next stories really need to be, and how do we tell really authentic stories. And I definitely can speak firsthand to that with Raya and the Last Dragon, with Moana, and with Frozen 2. We did a lot of work with culture consultants and working with those cultures that we are directly telling stories with, and with making sure that our filmmakers we have representatives from those communities so that we can lend an authentic voice. And we, now more than ever, we believe that it is so important to be telling true, authentic stories that do honor to the cultures that we are inspired from. So just bring your whole selves to everything and live authentically. That's just something I really hope I can encourage you on, because it's you're only doing yourself a disservice if you dampen your light at all. Yeah, animation is open to all of you. Let's see, what else? Where are we? How are we doing on time? How are we doing? Shall we pause?
So it technically ends at 3:45, but we got some questions. Oh,
okay,
no worries.
Right.
We got some questions, so we can stick around still, as long as if the audience is down for it. Yeah. So if it's good with you, Leah, we can go ahead and move into the kind of Q&A portion. So I'll let Danny take it away for that.
Danny.
All right, yeah. So we've gotten a few questions. They are anonymous, so I'll go ahead and read them off for you.
Okay.
I know you kind of touched on this a bit earlier, but is there anything else specific or any other little things that you did to help you land that job at Disney? Like anything that we can do now, or more specifics that you haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, oh, great. Okay, well, I'm going to obviously speak from my personal experience of production management. And for production management, our calling part, our demo reel is really our interpersonal communicating skills. Our resume is definitely the hard copy part of that. But when you walk into a room, whenever you meet someone, I had a piece of advice given to me when I was in college too. I had met an animator at Pixar, and through Kinematifest, and he said, are you here for an interview? And I was like, oh, no, I'm not here for an interview. He's like, he stopped me, he goes, it's always an interview. And that blew my mind, because it was such a good piece of advice that whenever you're meeting anyone, that person that you are presenting, that how you, from your handshake to your eye contact to how you present yourself, is going to leave an impact. So I took that definitely when I finally did get into that interview room, because it goes back to like the recruiter that I had garnered all that relationship with for 3 years. She wouldn't have given me that opportunity to even have an interview at Disney if I hadn't done the work along the way. That is definitely a piece of my advice, is that use that time at Webster as your learning ground, as your petri dish, to make your next step happen. The actual advice again for the interview, if you were in for an interview coaching moment with me, what I would tell you again, if we're doing production management, would be, I'm going to ask you questions about your leadership skills, about your leadership signature. I'm going to ask you questions about your creative problem solving, about how you handle stressful situations, how you handle last minute changes to the schedule. Team members that you have liked working with and team members that you have found difficult to work with, and what have you done to make it a successful experience at the end. So it all goes back to, again, if we're talking production management, for us, our craft is leadership. Our craft is taking a process and making it digestible and successful to be meeting goals at the end. So all of my questions are going to come from that space. And a big thing that I emphasize for anyone who is interested in pivoting to anything like this, no matter what experience you have, if you're working at McDonald's or Starbucks, that can have direct production management experience, because you are dealing with people, you are dealing with conflict. You get that grumpy person who's like, my name is not spelled that way, and chucks the drink in the garbage. Like, what are you going to do? So all of that, I worked down the street at Boardwalk Cafe at the little diner down the way, that I learned so much from that experience. And I learned about people, and I learned about conflict resolution, and even if it's over an omelet and a cup of coffee, so all of this is attainable and it's applicable.
That was wonderful. Yeah, thank you. All right, so this next one, the person is asking, is it too late to start an internship in the spring of your senior year or at the summer after your graduation?
The term, is it ever too late is always one that I want to shy away from, because ultimatums is almost never pans out. But if we're talking about Disney, we have internships. The only thing is you have to be returning back to school in the fall, or you have to be returning back to school whether it's the fall or spring, but you need to be returning back as a student. But we also have a trainee program that is for folks that are newly out of school within the last few years, which is great for an opportunity to get into the studio, get direct mentorship, get some experience, real world experience, and really elevate your craft very quickly, and then get some experience working on a movie, which is really, really great. So and different studios are totally different. Some internships you don't need to be returning back to school in the fall. Just for us, you do. So it's never too late. Never too late to get an internship.
Yes, I know that's a lot of worries that myself and some other students I've heard have voiced before about, like, oh, I should have started my sophomore year or my freshman year looking for internships. Oh, it's too late to start searching now. And like you had mentioned, the too late thing is relative to everyone. Everyone has their own paths, and it takes everyone a different amount of time to get into the industry. So
it definitely does.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely does. Yeah, and no experience is bad experience. So even if your goal is to like be at Disney or to be at Pixar or to be a dreamer, so wherever your heart is, if you don't leave school and land that job immediately, that is not failure. There are 1,000 different ways to get that experience along the way, and no path looks prescriptive. So an internship and not getting it at that big studio that you really want is still really, really valuable. There are many, many places to learn craft from.
Definitely, yes, definitely, I agree. All right, moving on to our next question. It says, did you ever try the DCP program? And if so, does it help to stay with Disney?
The DCP program, that's the college program. I did not try it, though I know a lot of folks did. And I know some folks that have landed, that are working, our current coworkers who have come from the college program, which is pretty cool. So yeah, it's definitely a great opportunity, especially if you really like to work in parks, and it gets you kind of in the Disney family. And who doesn't want to work at the theme park? It's awesome.
I actually have a question for you, specifically
shoot.
coming with producers. How do you feel like anyone who would look into becoming producer, especially now, like especially with studios not having people in them, and like, how do you feel like because you're very much a people person, and not having that direct interaction is kind of like, seems like kind of a loss, because like being with a crew and being with people working in the same room is just such a different energy. Even over this weekend, only with us like 4 being in here and just like talking to each other, it's so much like more lively. How do you like really deal with that?
That's a great question. I think all of us have definitely felt that through this last year, and we are so very fortunate. For a huge shout out to our technology team, who were able to turn us around in 2 weeks and get us all up, and we made Raya really entirely at home, and we're making Encanto that way as well. And it's incredible that we went from 900 people under one hat, we call it the hat because our building has a sorcerer's hat on it, to 900 homes. Yes, and that is some challenges that have come from that way. When our jobs are to lead teams and to boost morale and to boost communication, it is 3 times, 4 times, 10 times harder, because you have to reach out that much harder to try and get a vibe of how are you feeling. Like, people have lost loved ones, people have had babies, people have gotten married, people have gotten divorced, all in this last year and a half. And usually, particularly at our studio, that is a beautiful thing about our studio, because we are vertically integrated, which means we all get to make the movie under one hat. That is such an identity to who we are, that we can walk down the hall and I can have coffee with Ashley, and then 5 minutes later, have a conversation with Jen Lee, our badass CCO that I pledge allegiance to forever. And we ask our front desk attendants every day, how are you doing? Like, we all feel like a small town family. So everyone running then to home, we've really missed that. I think we've really missed that community. And we try to have like town halls where we turn our camera, but it's still not the same, because you can't have those organic conversations. So it takes extra energy. It really takes extra energy to try and reach out and respect where people are in their life, but let them know that you're there for them. I think it's turned the whole world, not just our studio or our industry. I think the whole world has really had to take a introverted look into empathy and what kind of management is successful in this place, and what do people really need to succeed. And so that's been really exciting, I think, for me, of corporate management philosophy. I think of becoming empathetic leaders, which is something I'm very passionate about, and I think it makes Disney a very special place for that too.
That is wonderful. So going back to earlier, you kind of mentioned the Disney parks a little bit and how wonderful it would be to work in one. This person is actually wondering if, well, they know animators work on Disney films, but do any of the animators work for the Disney parks as well? Do you know anything about that?
We have had, Leah Braxton had worked at one of the attractions of the park, and now she's a production coordinator with us. But we don't have, and I'm trying to think, I think like we've had some stories like that where some folks from the parks have taken their skills and moved to us. But so geographically, we are about an hour and a half away from Disneyland. We're in Burbank, and Disneyland is in Anaheim. So depending on your traffic, 45 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on what kind of day you're having. So no, it's not. And I remember, maybe some of you are old enough to remember back in the day in Florida, they used to have the studios to be in Disney World, and that was more of a direct relationship. That's not how it is now, and it's definitely not how it is out here in LA. So there's no one really pulling double duty down in the park that I am aware of. I think we all put in our hours under the hat.
All right, looks like we have another question asking about more of the professional stuff. They say, what advice do you have for producing demo reels, especially since like we're told that supposedly most of them only get viewed for a very short time?
Yes. Fantastic. Great question. Absolutely. Yes. So your demo reel should really never be longer than 1 to 2 minutes. Your demo reel should never have anything other than your very, very best work. So even if you had that project when you were a sophomore and you're super proud of it because you got an A, but your work has progressed far past it, don't put it on. Even if it's only one piece that is absolutely amazing, only put that one piece on. So your demo reel should show where you are at right now with your skill level, even if it's teeny tiny. And again, I think back to the panelists from before, they were talking about Instagram and how visual it is. Instagram is really a wonderful place to make your living, breathing portfolio. It's a great place that when you meet someone at the cafe or you go to the SIGGRAPH conference, which y'all are going to go to now, I know it, I can feel it, and you go and you wind up at the pub or something, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm a character designer. You can pull up your digital portfolio right now. You don't have to lug the big, huge folder around anymore. It's all can be right on your phone. So that also means again, to reiterate what the panel said, curate that thing, curate it, be aware that is your public facing face. So if you want your art portfolio to be out there, go ahead and curate. It's yours to curate. There are pieces that you're like, that no longer represents me, or I have gone so much past that. You can take it down. It's totally fine. You can get the feedback back. It's okay to take stuff down if you want to. Also, part of it is you start making those relationships. You start meeting those people at the job fairs, and you get to start to get feedback on your portfolio. You can come back to them after you've taken their notes. Take their notes. These are people who are giving you advice. They are not being mean. If they look at your stuff and give you 65 notes, say thank you. That is gold. That is gold. Go and practice all those 65 things that they said, and then follow up with them. Follow up and say, I took all of your notes. Now what do you think? And then maybe they have 35 notes. Great. Thank you. That's gold. Go work on that. But what you're doing is you're forming a relationship along the way and showing your potential and your progress and your willingness to take notes and change. And sometimes that can pay off in dividends as well. Just having that relationship with a recruiter or with an artist, whomever can be your future advocate and ally, you know, when you do eventually get that job. I think it also, just to be an ally, it's so important to remember all those people who got you there along the way. And when you get there, turn around and bring 3 people with you. Bring those mentor, ally, open a door, crack a door for someone else, because it's so important to remember what this feels like right now, how scared you are right now, because one day it won't be scary, but someone else will be scared. And you get to be that friend that gets to lead them through.
That was really inspiring. Thank you. I actually have a question that sort of stemmed from like what you just said, as well as something I saw Ashley say in the chat. So I definitely agree that like social media, like kind of what you said, like you constantly have that portfolio. That's a great resource. But I think also it can be a little intimidating because it's not only Instagram, there's Twitter, ArtStation, DeviantArt, all these different art sites, as well as the new one, Artful. I think it's how you say it. It just sort of came out and people are kind of jumping on that bandwagon.
Cool.
What advice would you maybe have for, is there like a certain portfolio, is there a certain site that we should be like sort of putting our energy in, or can we afford to have a site that's just sort of like doodles and just kind of not our best, but just stuff that we want to post, even though potential employers might see that and not necessarily be impressed with what's not our best?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think yes, absolutely. Just know that when you go out for the job hunt and your resume and all that, link on your resume and on your portfolio the places you do want them to look. So if you have that other space that is like that's your messy sandbox, cool. But just don't go, hey recruiter, come look at my messy sandbox, unless you want them to. But what you can do is go, hey recruiter, come look at the thing that I have taken and I've curated, and I can absolutely stand by and let you see my best things. It's just, you know, directing their eye.
All right, well then I'm not seeing any other questions in the Q&A.
No more questions?
We are hearing
really?
for.
Okay.
I
Yes,
did have
so-
another question really quick.
Do it.
Go for it.
Do it.
All right. You had mentioned earlier, and I'm just kind of curious about it. How are you able to get that voice acting role for Zootopia? Because you kind of mentioned how you kind of just stumbled into it. I didn't know if they approached you about it or if you kind of auditioned or like suggested yourself for the role. How did that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's first off, just a huge honor, and it was by happenstance. Actually, I've gotten to be, my first one was in Big Hero 6, and so how we make these movies is we have screening cycles, and yeah, I hope you guys are all right. I could talk all night. Let me explain to you what screening schedules are, how we like the lifespan of a movie is. So you get an idea, and you with the director and the creators, and you work on a script, and then that script gets storyboarded, and then the storyboards get edited together by animation editor. And at that point, say you're working on Frozen or any of our movies, and at that point, early in the screening cycles, early in the development of a movie, you're not going to call Jonathan Groff and Kristen Bell and Idina Menzel in, because you know they're very busy and they cost a lot of money. So instead, you bring like the 5 of us in, and we do our best to act out the script, because we're just testing ideas. And so that's kind of goes back to what I was saying about don't be afraid to try things that scare you. The very first time I got in front of a microphone for that, it was because I worked on Frozen 1 in editorial, and I was there in the room, and I was like, oh, read the thing, okay, and you know, and just keep putting yourself out there. And so that's how I first started getting known, at least within the studio, as someone that they could turn to who took direction all right and could be one of those voices. And then for Big Hero 6, so we call that scratch when it's like the 5 of us folks. That's scratch acting, because it's intended to be replaced. And so for Big Hero 6, I did a computer voice and a science fair announcer voice. And is there no one? Yeah, I think it was those two. And it just so happened that by the time they got all the way down to post-production, they liked what I had done and they decided to keep it in. So it was totally by chance, but I'm so lucky. It was just because they really liked what I had done and they decided that they didn't need to replace it. So that's how I got in for Big Hero 6. For Zootopia, Zootopia was interesting because we were making the whole movie and Moana in a warehouse because our building was under construction. So we were in a warehouse about 5 miles or so away from the studio. And we were away from our proper, beautiful recording studio. And so again, for scratch, I was editorial production supervisor. And they, the editor was like, we need someone to voice this Jersey shrew, and I was like, I will do this. This is a thing I will do in your office in a microphone next to your Avid. So I went in and I made up this character and I did her voice, and I was really lucky because our John Laster, CCO at the time, really liked it. I liked what I had done, and wanted that voice to stay, which was incredible. So that meant that I got to voice Frou Frou Shrew, and she, which is such a fun character. And yeah, so that was that. Same kind of thing. I'm in Cycles, which is a VR short. I think you can see on Disney Plus right now. I'm just really lucky. It's I then looked into some voice acting, and after that, and it's like anything else, you have to work really, really hard, and you have to work on your craft, work on your voice, take lessons, meet people, and keep working on that. And I have so much respect for people who make that a full-time gig. I'm so lucky that I got to do it. I feel like I got to play dress up for a couple roles. Incredible honor, but it is a very difficult, so fun, but very difficult path, as well as any of these roles really are, as these jobs really are. But that is how I got to be Frou Frou. Anybody else?
All right.
I got one more thing.
Oh, go
Go
for it.
ahead.
Well, I have so many questions going on all the time.
I'm here for you.
It's like,
What's out there?
so what was your favorite role you played in like a film? Like what position that you were in that you just absolutely enjoyed throughout like all your like films that you've worked on?
Voice acting, or just all of it, or any of it?
Just all of it. Any like
All of
position
it?
that you held, what was your favorite?
It really, again, it goes back to what I was saying and why I said in the first place about how important it is about the people you're working with. For everything every movie that we work on, like everyone in that studio, I'm so passionate about. Everyone in that studio are just gorgeous human beings and make the job so fun. They're the most talented and brilliant and nice people. We're so lucky to have such a fantastic community. But Frozen 1 was my first real big movie, and I was so immediately accepted into that core group. And being in story and editorial, you are in the rooms with the directors and the writers and the producers and the head of story. You're in that core group that are like discovering the movie. And so that really opened my eyes and taught me so much. And again, when I say pledge allegiance to Jen Lee, it's really because of what she saw in me too. Talking about career mentors, she is absolutely one of them for me. She has encouraged my writing. She has encouraged my voice. She has encouraged, just my thinking, and, in a place back to when, to what I was kind of saying about the little tiny voice where I'm like, I don't deserve to be here. This is really amazing. And you guys are all incredibly brilliant. And, that was a voice that she's helped me directly as a mentor kind of squelch. And, like, no, you deserve to be here. And I have those fears too. You're like, Jennifer Lee, you have fears? And it's just like, of course, we all are, we are all human, and we are all learning as we go. So I have to say Frozen because of what that team means to me, and that core team and what they have inspired me to do, and those lessons that I learned. And then for Frozen 2, we had such a fantastic opportunity because a lot of us came right back and got to work again. So I went back to story. I went from, instead of editorial, I was now in story, but it's really the same core people. The woman who was my first supervisor was now my peer. She was my editorial PS, and I call her my work wife, Heather Blodgett. She's amazing. So it's just a huge honor because you just get to keep working with your family, which for all that means, because family can mean drama, right? It's never pristine. But, at the end of the day, we all come home and we all love each other. We know that it's a really cool honor that all of our problems that we have, at least at Disney, I feel like stem from a place of passion. we're all so passionate about what we do that innately can create conflict. Also a little side note, sub bullet point, something that I opened my eyes when I finally got the job, because when you're, at least when I was in school, I would look at something like Disney and go like, they must have it all figured out. Everything must just be smooth, oiled machine. We don't. We're making it up. We're making it up. So, so be encouraged, because these dynamics and these lessons that you're learning right here, right now, that doesn't go away, and it will serve you going forward. It will serve you going into wherever you land, no matter how big or how small or whatever kind of place you end up working. Or if you're, Eric, to your point, if you're working Zoom only and you're not working in a all big community, those lessons, we're constantly making mistakes, and we're learning, and we're changing our procedures as we go, and we're realizing that we're like, we're all kids that someone has left with the keys to the car, and we're like, oh, okay, we're like, we can do this. So there, even for as we're going to be a 100-year-old company here, in 2023, which is incredible, like the oldest animation studio in, I think, the world. And we're still learning and changing and evolving and, making mistakes and trying to fix them as best as we can.
That's awesome. This isn't really a question. This is more of just a commentary based on what you just said. But one thing that I've sort of noticed, I guess, is the unofficial theme of Kinematifest that I think has been amazing, is so many panelists and almost, I think, all the keynotes talked at one point about they had sort of no idea like what exactly they wanted to do. And I think openly talking about that fear going into the industry of, this is what I'm going to do, and then realizing like a couple years in or 10 years in that it's not what you want to do, and hearing people in the industry being able to openly talk about sort of doing a 180 from realizing this isn't what I want to do, and being able to successfully go back in the industry and still like get your footing back. I think that has been an absolute amazing thing that both you and panelists and other keynotes have spoken on this weekend about, really being able to just sort of fail and succeed in the industry, but never really like losing, always kind of having that best foot forward. And I think that's been awesome.
Yeah. And like what I was saying about when we interview, say production assistants, because I'm on the interview, I love it. I'm very passionate about, I just love being on interview panels and meeting so many very passionate, talented people. I love the folks that don't have the traditional, they didn't go to, this particular school with this particular degree with this, that maybe took a little different road along there. As long as you were able to take that experience, if it's on your resume, you need to be able to make it part of your narrative and spin it to connect it back to that job you were applying for. So again, in personal experience, if you are working at the Boardwalk Cafe down the street and you find yourself in an interview, right? I needed to take those lessons I learned as a waitress and apply them, articulate them into craft. And so it's never the wrong step. It's never the wrong direction, as long as you are being self-reflective about what you just learned, including what you don't want to do through that. I learned I don't want to be an animator. That was valuable. That was super valuable for me. Never to think that it's all one and done.
You never lose, you only ever learn. And I think that's really good to hear.
Yeah. I mean, think about those folks too that you meet at at a party or whatever, and they're like, oh, I did this thing and I did that, and I went and I traveled here, and I, my family's from over here, and I can speak this language, and like, they're so interesting to talk to, right? Versus the people who try to like stay on one path, which, so that's cool too. You get to be more interesting at parties.
Yeah,
Who doesn't want to be that?
To add to that, it's just like people, it's so many things that are interesting in the world that it's just like not going and looking for new experiences. It's just like, why? I want to try so many more things. Like, I just applied for a job at a coffee shop because I just got into coffee this past year, and my whole senior overview is about coffee now. My whole animated shorts. So it's just so interesting to hear that in this entire weekend.
That's a great point too, because if you want to start telling a story, you need to really understand what it is that you are doing. So exactly like you just said, you're telling a story about coffee. You need to go immerse yourself in coffee, which sounds like a lot of fun, by the way. But I would love to immerse myself in coffee. But that is so important. And it's so important when we as storytellers are telling stories that don't directly reflect from our lived experience, then we have a responsibility to learn as much about them from authentic places as possible. Yeah, it's all good. It's all learning. Rachel, you haven't said anything. Do you have any questions?
Man, I've just been soaking in everything. Honestly, everything that I could have thought of is you talked a lot about already. I don't know. I'm observing. I'm soaking it all up.
I only because it's passionate on my heart. Are there any women out there who have any particular questions or fears or anything like that that I can help speak to? That's something that's on my heart for sure. I'm here for you. If not, that's okay. Everyone's cool.
I think it's not really a question. It's more of just kind of touching on what you had previously said about like that kind of voice, like kind of like always in the back of your head of like, why am I here? Like, I'm not worth this. Like, this isn't like, I'm not like worth these people's time. I think that's a really good kind of thing to talk about and just be upfront about and be like, this is something that this is something that like everyone deals with, but no one talks about. And I think that's something for me, that's kind of exactly like you answered it before I even asked the question, like just kind of knowing that feeling's there and knowing that you're just always going to have to tackle it, but knowing that it can be tackled is just really nice and inspiring to hear.
Yeah, it doesn't really go away. It changes, a little bit. And, taking that moment of reflection and meditation, asking, where is this voice coming from? Is this something that I've heard, or is this something that I've got internally that's telling me that I don't, is it a statistic that I heard that, there are fewer women in the industry, or there are fewer women above the line, or there, you can't be of a certain age and be an actress, whatever. Like, take that statistic and then use it and destroy it. Use it and take it with you to whatever job you're going to and say, use it if it's part of your narrative, like only X amount of women are filmmakers. Don't you think we should do something about that? Don't you want to be part of the revolution? And don't you want to be part of making this a more equitable place to work and live? The answer is almost always yes. So, use that data is nothing if not just to be used and exploited and then leveraged and make it work for you. Make sure women, and again, I'm only speaking from, the shared experiences that we have, but make sure that you negotiate. Make sure that when you go in and you get that first job, negotiate, ask if that's the best offer that they can do your research ahead of time, ask them what the salary range is. This is for everyone too, but I speaking because I know that it's not natural for us women to enter into that space and come at it and say what you want and say what you think you're worth, state your value, and go on the high side, because the worst that they're going to tell you is no, but they might tell you yes. And so take the risk and be bold and be brave and take up space. Don't feel like you have to shirk back into the shadows. Take up space. You deserve to be there too. Yeah, do your research, because there are more women now more than ever. There are more, BIPOC and people of color and gender non-conforming, and all of us, we're all showing up now, and people are listening, which is a wonderful place to be, no matter what your experience is, no matter where you're coming from. People are asking for us to be at the tables now more than ever, which is fantastic. And even if people stop asking for us to be at the table, show up anyway. Like, take a seat, just like anyone else deserves to have that seat. But a part and parcel that goes with that is you have to do the work. You have to put in the work along the way, and you have to keep pitching yourself and remind people why you deserve to have that seat. But you do.
There is one thing I wanted to say. I wanted to say, I think it's really, really brave to completely question what you're doing when you're in college and turn it all around. I think it's so hard to like
So hard.
completely back it up and change what you're doing. I think that's really brave.
Yes. Oh, thank you. It's very sweet. But it is because what goes through your mind is like, I worked really hard to get here, right? I did the scholarships, I did the classwork, I did my entire life getting ready to be right where I am, and I'm realizing it's not where I want to be. And but at least you're being honest with yourself now. That's something that you should get comfortable doing. Be honest with yourself where you are today, and let that change. It's okay to let it change. We are where you are today will be somewhere else emotionally, mentally, spiritually. In 5, 10, 15 years, you'll be somewhere else. And just keeping that awareness and that honesty with your own self is so important, and it will see you through. Because at the end of the day, honestly, again, school is there for you. Make it work for you. You are paying the money. You did the hard work to get to where you are. And Webster is incredible for that. And for all the lessons I learned is because of how flexible Webster was. They let us say we want animation be a full-fledged major, and my class was the first graduating class that got to be a full-fledged major a year ahead of schedule. But like, that was a goal that we wanted, and we made it happen. And I give a lot of credit for Webster for supporting us and being like these very passionate students who are like, this is what we want this change, this is how we're going to get there. We want Kinematifest, we want SIGGRAPH, we want I think Cody talked about making his own major. My husband made his own major, same sort of thing. That's a wonderful thing. I was on the path to do a minor in art, and I pivoted just so that I could focus on the producing skills too. Webster is there for your whole education, right? It is, think about what you want to get out of it. It's your money, it's your time, it's your place to learn. So start cherry picking for the things that you want to take with you when you graduate, when you walk across that platform in graduation day. It's all about that learned experience that you have had an active role in making.
You've been so inspiring. You've just been so amazing. I think that there's such good energy in this panel, in this room, and in the chat. And I cannot thank you enough for taking time out of your very busy Disney schedule to come and talk to us and come and interact. I'm not really seeing any more questions, so I think we are going to have to call it. Unfortunately, this has been absolutely amazing. For everyone who is watching, thank you so much for participating in Kinematifest. It has been a wonderful experience. We are very happy with how the weekend turned out. As I've been saying in the Discord, if you were not able to make a certain session, all of the recordings of the sessions will be put up on the Webster SOC Hub website, as well as Danny said earlier, the films are no longer going to be available to the public until 6 p.m. So go and watch all those submissions. The winners will go live at 5 p.m. and they'll stay up until 8 p.m. So you can go and see sort of quotes from all the creators and see their pictures and see kind of who they are and why they made it and all that fun stuff. So once again, thank you so much to Leah. This was amazing. This was inspiring, and I'm feeling pretty jazzed about ready to go continue creating things.
Great, good. So glad to hear it. Thank you guys. This has been a huge honor, truly. And shout out to all the animation professors too. I see you, Chris. And Michael, I hope you're on there too. See you.
I think Michael, I think I saw him, yeah. All right. Well,
love to St. Louis.
Yes, we're gonna go ahead and call it, but
There he
have
is.
a good one, guys.
I see you.
Yes.
Thank you again. Oh my goodness.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Oh,
so
my
much.
pleasure.
Have a good one,
Congratulations,
guys.
everybody. Happy Kinematifest.
Thank you.
Bye.